The discovery. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless worlds, species, and civilizations. Among them, the Cathar stood as one of the most ancient and respected. They were an old race, known for their wisdom and their insatiable curiosity. Over millennia, they had explored thousands of star systems, uncovering the relics of forgotten civilizations, some of which had risen and fallen before the Cathar even took their first steps into the stars. However, the Cathar had recently uncovered something truly extraordinary: a series of ancient Tombworlds, filled with relics of a civilization long thought to be a myth. These planets were unlike anything they had ever encountered, worlds that were both terrifying and fascinating. The Cathar, driven by their relentless quest for knowledge and their desire to understand the universe, began to excavate these Tombworlds. The Tombworlds were rich with artifacts and technological wonders that defied comprehension. The Cathar scientists and archaeologists marveled at their discoveries: weapons that seemed to manipulate the very fabric of reality, machines that could alter the environment of entire planets, and devices that appeared to be capable of harnessing the power of stars. But the most intriguing aspect of these Tombworlds was the evidence of their creators, a species that was referred to in legends as the humans. Humans were a name whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy, often dismissed as mere myth. The stories described them as a race of unparalleled strength and resilience, capable of both incredible kindness and unimaginable cruelty. They were said to have been the dominant force in the galaxy long before the rise of the Cathar, their empire spanning thousands of star systems. But then, without warning, they vanished, leaving behind only ruins and forgotten legends. The Cathar were eager to learn more about this mysterious species, and so they continued their excavations, driven by a mixture of curiosity and greed. They stripped the Tombworlds of their treasures, unaware of the warnings inscribed in ancient, indecipherable scripts on the walls of the crypts they plundered. These warnings, if they had been understood, would have given the Cathar pause, for they spoke of a terrible curse that would befall any who disturbed the resting place of the humans. But the Cathar were blind to the danger. They saw only the promise of knowledge and power, and so they delved deeper into the Tombworlds, unearthing relics that should have remained buried. The Cathar believed they were safe, that they could control whatever they uncovered. They were wrong. As the Cathar continued their excavations, strange things began to happen. The first sign was the disappearance of entire excavation teams. One moment they were there, digging through the ruins, and the next, they were gone, their tools and equipment left behind, as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Then came the nightmares. The Cathar scientists and archaeologists began to experience horrific visions, dreams of dark, empty voids and faceless beings watching them from the shadows. At first, the Cathar dismissed these occurrences as stress-induced hallucinations, a natural response to the eerie and desolate environments they were working in. But as the disappearances continued and the nightmares grew more intense, fear began to take hold. Some of the Cathar started to whisper that they had awakened something ancient and malevolent, something that had been lying dormant in the Tombworlds for eons. Despite the growing fear, the Cathar leadership refused to halt the excavations. They were too close to unlocking the secrets of the humans, too close to uncovering the key to their ultimate power. And so they pressed on, even as the shadows around them grew darker and more oppressive. The Cathar were not the only ones aware of the Tombworlds. Across the galaxy, other species began to take notice of the Cathar's activities. Rumors spread like wildfire, tales of the ancient human tombs filled with unimaginable treasures. It wasn't long before other races began to send their own expeditions to the Tombworlds, hoping to claim a piece of the human legacy for themselves. But the Cathar were the first, and they had no intention of sharing their discoveries. Tensions began to rise as different factions competed for control of the Tombworlds, and skirmishes broke out between rival excavation teams. The Tombworlds, once silent and forgotten, had become a battleground, and the ancient curse began to awaken fully. One by one, the Tombworlds fell silent. The teams sent to them stopped responding, their ships left orbit, and their communications went dead. The Cathar leaders, desperate to understand what was happening, sent a fleet to investigate. What they found was beyond comprehension. The Tombworlds were gone. Entire planets had vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but empty space, where once there had been worlds teeming with history and artifacts. It was as if they had been erased from existence, as if the universe itself had decided to cleanse itself of the desecration that had taken place. The few survivors who managed to escape told tales of horrors beyond imagination. They spoke of shadows that moved with a will of their own, of whispers in the darkness that drove men to madness, and of a presence, ancient and malevolent, that seemed to hunger for the souls of those who had dared to disturb its rest. The Cathar, once so confident in their power and knowledge, were now gripped by terror. They realized too late that they had made a grave mistake, that they had awakened something that should never have been disturbed. The humans were not just a myth, they were real, and they were far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. But the true horror was yet to come, for the humans were not dead, as the Cathar had believed. They were very much alive, and they were coming for those who had dared to plunder their Tombworlds. And so the galaxy trembled as the darkness began to spread, and the Cathar realized that they had unleashed a force that could not be stopped. The humans were coming, and there would be no mercy for those who had disturbed their rest. The awakening. The void was silent, as it had been for countless millennia. The Tombworlds, scattered across the galaxy, had lain undisturbed for eons, their secrets buried beneath layers of dust and forgotten history. But now, something stirred in the darkness, something ancient and powerful. Deep within the tombs, machines that had been dormant for millennia hummed to life. Sensors, long forgotten by the galaxy, began to scan the surrounding space, searching for signs of life. And when they found it, the machines sent out a signal, a pulse of energy that rippled through the fabric of space-time, awakening others like them across the galaxy. The signal reached out, touching Tombworlds in distant star systems, and one by one, the ancient machines began to stir. It was a signal that had been programmed into them by the humans long ago, a final failsafe in case their Tombworlds were ever disturbed. And now, that failsafe had been triggered. The Cathar had no idea what they had unleashed. They continued to plunder the Tombworlds, oblivious to the danger that was awakening all around them. But the humans were not a species that would allow their resting place to be violated. They had prepared for this, long before they had vanished from the galaxy. The machines began to communicate with each other, exchanging data and coordinating their actions. They activated defense systems that had lain dormant for millennia, and ancient weapons powered up, ready to defend the Tombworlds from any who dared to approach. But the defense systems were only the beginning. The humans had left behind more than just machines. They had left behind something far more dangerous, something that had been created in the final days of their empire, when they knew their time was coming to an end. The Cathar were the first to encounter it. As they continued their excavations, they began to notice strange things happening. Equipment would malfunction without warning, tools would disappear, and crew members would go missing. At first, the Cathar dismissed these events as accidents or the result of stress. But as they continued to delve deeper into the Tombworlds, the occurrences became more frequent and more sinister. Then the first Cathar ships began to disappear. They would enter orbit around a Tombworld, ready to retrieve the latest batch of artifacts, and then, without warning, their signals would go dead. The ships would vanish without a trace, leaving behind no wreckage, no sign of what had happened to them. The Cathar leadership was in a state of panic. They had never encountered anything like this before. Their technology, and then, the invaders began to land on the surface. The Cathar civilians watched in horror as massive ships descended from the skies, their dark hulls glinting ominously in the light of their dying sun. These were not ordinary ships. They were war machines, constructed with an eerie precision and efficiency that spoke of a mind far beyond the comprehension of the Cathar. The invaders were not living beings as the Cathar had expected. They were automatons, cold, unfeeling machines programmed with a single purpose: to punish those who had disturbed the Tombworlds. They moved with an unnatural speed and coordination, their metal bodies glinting in the light of burning cities. They had no need for communication or hesitation. Their objectives were clear, and their programming was absolute. The Cathar fought back with all the strength they could muster, but it was hopeless. Their most advanced weapons barely scratched the invaders' armor, and their cities fell one by one. The invaders' tactics were relentless, their strategies flawless. They moved like a swarm, overwhelming any resistance with sheer numbers and overwhelming firepower. Within hours, the Cathar homeworld was reduced to a smoldering ruin. The few survivors who managed to escape fled into the wilderness, their minds shattered by the horror they had witnessed. But the invaders did not stop there. They spread across the Cathar star system, systematically destroying every colony, every outpost, every trace of Cathar civilization. It was as if they were wiping the Cathar from existence, erasing them from the galaxy as punishment for their crimes. And as the Cathar homeworld burned, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The other races, who had once viewed the Cathar as a symbol of stability and strength, now saw them as a cautionary tale. Whispers of the human Tombworlds spread through the galaxy, stories of the ancient machines, and the terrible retribution that had befallen those who dared to disturb them. But the galaxy's fear did not stop the greed of some. The news of the Cathar's demise spread like wildfire, and soon other species began to send their own expeditions to the Tombworlds. Despite the warnings, they believed they could succeed where the Cathar had failed. They believed they could plunder the Tombworlds and escape the wrath of the ancient machines. They were wrong. The machines, now fully awakened, were prepared for them. Each Tombworld had become a fortress, bristling with defenses that had been dormant for millennia. The ships that approached the Tombworlds were met with a wall of firepower that annihilated them before they even entered orbit. And those that managed to land found themselves facing the same invincible machines that had destroyed the Cathar. But it wasn't just the machines. As the galaxy soon learned, the humans had left behind more than just automatons. They had left behind something far more terrifying, a presence that defied explanation. It started with the explorers who had managed to escape the initial onslaught. They returned to their homeworlds, thinking they had survived the worst. But then strange things began to happen. They started to see things, shadows moving in the corner of their eyes, whispers that they couldn't quite make out. At first, they dismissed these as the aftereffects of their harrowing experiences. But soon, the visions became more vivid, more terrifying. They dreamed of a vast, empty void, filled with countless stars, all of them cold and dead. In the center of this void stood a figure, humanoid in shape, but with eyes that burned like twin suns. The figure would speak, though the words were incomprehensible, and every time the explorers woke up, they found themselves more drained, more hollow. Some of the explorers began to disappear, vanishing without a trace. Others were found dead, their bodies twisted in unnatural ways, as if something had torn them apart from the inside. The ones who survived were left broken, their minds shattered by the things they had seen. And the presence spread, reaching out beyond the Tombworlds. Ships passing near the Tombworlds would report strange anomalies, sudden drops in temperature, unexplained malfunctions, and the feeling of being watched. Some ships simply disappeared, while others returned with their crews driven mad by what they had encountered. The galaxy was gripped by fear. The once proud civilizations now trembled at the thought of the Tombworlds, those silent, ancient planets that seemed to hold a darkness far beyond their understanding. The galaxy's leaders met in secret, desperate to find a way to contain the threat, to stop the spread of the presence before it consumed them all. But the presence was not something that could be contained. It was something older than the galaxy itself, something that had been waiting in the dark for millennia. The humans had left it behind as a final safeguard, a last defense against those who would disturb their tombs. And now it had awakened, hungry for the souls of those who had dared to trespass. The galaxy's leaders, in their desperation, turned to the last option they had. They would seal off the Tombworlds, quarantining entire star systems, in the hope that the presence would be contained. It was a gamble, but they had no other choice. The Tombworlds were declared forbidden, and any ship that approached them would be destroyed on sight. But as the galaxy prepared for its last-ditch effort to contain the threat, a new signal was detected. A signal that originated from the deepest part of the Tombworlds, from a place that even the machines could not reach. It was a message broadcast across the galaxy in a language that had not been heard for millennia. The message was simple, a single phrase repeated over and over again: "Stop plundering human Tombworlds." And with that message, the galaxy realized the truth. The humans were not gone. They were still out there, somewhere in the vastness of space, watching, waiting. And they would not tolerate any further desecration of their tombs. The retaliation. The galaxy's leaders had never felt more helpless. The Tombworlds, once thought to be a source of unimaginable wealth, had become a curse upon those who dared to approach them. The Cathar, once a proud and powerful civilization, had been annihilated, their entire race reduced to little more than a cautionary tale whispered in the shadows. Other races, too, had suffered losses, their expeditions to the Tombworlds ending in tragedy and death. But the true horror was yet to come. The message, repeated across the galaxy, had made it clear. The humans were not gone. They were still out there, and they were angry. The galaxy had been warned, and now it was time for the humans to make their presence felt. It began slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Ships would go missing near the Tombworlds, their last transmissions filled with static and garbled messages. Entire fleets would vanish without a trace, leaving behind only empty space where they had once been. The presence, once confined to the Tombworlds, began to spread, reaching out into the galaxy, touching every race, every star system. The galaxy's leaders scrambled to respond. They reinforced their borders, deploying fleets to patrol the edges of their territories, hoping to intercept any sign of the human threat. But it was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a net. The humans were everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They struck without warning, their attacks swift and devastating. The first major strike came against the Vril, a race known for their advanced technology and military might. The Vril had been one of the first to send expeditions to the Tombworlds, and now they would pay the price. A fleet of human warships appeared in the heart of Vril space, bypassing their defenses as if they were nothing. The Vril military, caught off guard, tried to mount a defense, but it was hopeless. The human ships were unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, black vessels that seemed to absorb the very light around them. They moved with a speed and precision that defied logic, their weapons tearing through Vril ships with ease. The battle was over in minutes. The Vril fleet was obliterated, their homeworld left defenseless. The human ships, however, did not move in to conquer. Instead, they hovered in orbit, sending a single message to the Vril leadership: "Stop plundering human Tombworlds." The Vril, terrified and desperate, complied. They withdrew their remaining forces from the Tombworlds, abandoning their excavations, and issued a formal apology to the humans. But the damage had already been done. The humans had made their point, and the galaxy now knew the price of defying them. But the humans were not finished. Over the next few weeks, they struck at other races that had dared to plunder their Tombworlds. The attacks were surgical, precise, targeting only military installations and key infrastructure. The humans had no interest in conquest. They'd wanted to send a message. And the message was clear: the Tombworlds were off limits. Any race that dared to disturb them would face the full wrath of the humans. The galaxy was in chaos. The once powerful civilizations were now paralyzed by fear, their leaders scrambling to find a way to appease the humans. But the humans were not interested in negotiation. They had made their terms clear, and there would be no compromise. The galaxy's leaders gathered in a last-ditch effort to find a solution. They met in secret, in a neutral star system far from the Tombworlds, hoping to find a way to end the human threat. But as they debated and argued, the humans struck again, this time targeting the very heart of the galaxy's power, the Galactic Council. The Council's capital, a massive space station orbiting a black hole, was considered impregnable. It was the seat of power for the galaxy, the place where all decisions were made. But the humans cared nothing for the Council's authority. They attacked without warning, their ships appearing out of nowhere, bypassing the station's defenses with ease. The Council's security forces were powerless to stop them. The human ships disabled the station's weapons, cutting off all communication, leaving the Council members trapped and defenseless. The humans did not fire a single shot. Instead, they sent a message that was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Leave the Tombworlds in peace. This is your only warning. The message was clear, and the galaxy finally understood. The humans were not a force to be reasoned with. They were a force of nature, a remnant of a time long past, and they would not tolerate any further disturbance of their tombs. The galaxy's leaders had no choice but to comply. They issued a galaxy-wide decree declaring the Tombworlds off-limits to all races. Any ship that approached them would be destroyed, and any race that attempted to plunder them would face the full wrath of the humans. The Tombworlds were sealed off, quarantined from the rest of the galaxy. The presence, the ancient machines, and the humans themselves were left undisturbed, their secrets hidden away for eternity. And so the galaxy returned to a fragile peace, haunted by the knowledge that the humans were still out there, watching, waiting. The Tombworlds remained a mystery, their secrets buried deep beneath the surface, guarded by forces far beyond the comprehension of any living being. But the galaxy had learned its lesson. The Tombworlds were not to be disturbed, and the humans were not to be trifled with. The tombs of Earth remained sealed, their ancient guardians standing watch over the sleeping giants of the past, ensuring that the mistakes of history would never be repeated. The galaxy moved on, but the memory of the human retaliation lingered. It was a reminder that some things were best left undisturbed, that some forces were beyond the understanding of even the most advanced civilizations. And it was a reminder that, even in the vastness of space, the legacy of humanity would never be forgotten. The legacy. The galaxy had returned to a tenuous peace, but the scars of the human retaliation ran deep. The Tombworlds, once coveted for their secrets, were now the most feared places in the galaxy. The decree that had sealed them off was obeyed without question. No race dared to test the resolve of the ancient human presence that had reawakened. For a time, the galaxy seemed to settle into a new equilibrium. The great civilizations resumed their daily lives, focusing on rebuilding what had been lost. But beneath the surface, there was an unspoken truth that no one could ignore. The humans were still out there, somewhere in the vastness of space, watching and waiting. As the years passed, the fear that had gripped the galaxy began to evolve into something else: curiosity. What had become of the humans? Were they truly gone, or were they still out there, hidden in some distant corner of the galaxy? The Tombworlds, now sealed off and untouched, became a symbol of the greatest mystery in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once paralyzed by fear, began to change its approach. Instead of seeing the humans as a threat, they began to view them as an enigma, a piece of lost history that needed to be understood. Secretly, the Council commissioned a group of the galaxy's most brilliant minds to study the Tombworlds from afar, to uncover whatever knowledge they could without violating the sacred decree. These scholars and scientists were the best in their fields, chosen from every corner of the galaxy. They were tasked with a seemingly impossible mission: to unlock the secrets of the humans without ever setting foot on a Tombworld. They pored over ancient records, analyzed the fragments of data left behind by the few who had survived encounters with the Tombworlds, and even delved into the myths and legends that had sprung up around the humans. Over time, a new understanding began to take shape. The humans were not just a warlike species, they were something far more complex. They had built a civilization that had reached unimaginable heights, mastering technologies that even the most advanced races could only dream of. But they had also faced great challenges, conflicts that had threatened their very existence. The Tombworlds were not just graves. They were repositories of knowledge, monuments to the triumphs and tragedies of an ancient race. The more the scholars uncovered, the more they realized how little they truly understood. The humans had been a paradox, a species capable of both great destruction and great creation, of war and peace, of conquest and compassion. The Tombworlds were a reflection of that paradox, a place of death, but also a place of incredible potential. And then one day the scholars made a breakthrough. They discovered a signal hidden deep within the Tombworld's defenses, a signal that had been dormant for millennia. It was faint, barely detectable, but it was there, a message left behind by the humans, encoded in a language that had not been spoken for thousands of years. The message was a single word: legacy. The scholars were stunned. What did it mean? Was it a warning, a reminder of the power the humans had wielded? Or was it something else, an invitation, perhaps, to those who were willing to understand the true nature of the Tombworlds? The Galactic Council debated what to do. Some argued that the message should be ignored, that the Tombworlds should remain undisturbed. Others believed that it was a sign, a final gift from the humans, waiting to be claimed. But the fear of another retaliation was too great, and the Council decided to do nothing. The Tombworlds would remain sealed, their secrets locked away for eternity. But not everyone agreed with the Council's decision. Among the scholars was a young researcher named Ilara, a brilliant and driven mind who had spent her life studying the humans. She believed that the message was not a threat, but an invitation, a chance to connect with the lost civilization, to learn from them, and perhaps even rebuild the bond that had once existed between humanity and the galaxy. Ilara knew that the Council would never approve an expedition to the Tombworlds, so she made a decision that would change everything. She gathered a small team of like-minded individuals, those who believed in her vision, and together they set out to uncover the truth. They would not plunder the Tombworlds. They would approach with respect, with the understanding that they were treading on sacred ground. Their journey took them to the edge of the galaxy, to the very heart of the Tombworlds. As they approached, they felt the presence, an ancient, overwhelming force that seemed to watch their every move. But they did not turn back. Ilara and her team landed on the surface of the Tombworld, not as conquerors, but as pilgrims seeking knowledge. The Tombworld was a desolate place, its surface covered in the ruins of a once great civilization. But beneath the surface, Ilara knew, lay the true heart of the Tombworlds. They made their way through the ancient corridors, guided by the faint signal they had discovered. The journey was long and treacherous, filled with traps and defenses that had been left behind to guard the tombs. But Ilara and her team pressed on, driven by the belief that they were on the brink of something extraordinary. Finally, they reached the center of the Tombworld, a vast chamber filled with the relics of the human civilization. And there, at the heart of the chamber, they found it. A device, ancient and powerful, pulsating with energy. It was the source of the signal, the legacy the humans had left behind. Ilara approached the device with reverence. She knew that whatever lay within was a gift, a final message from the humans to the galaxy. She activated the device, and in an instant, the chamber was filled with light. A holographic image appeared before them, a figure of a human, its eyes filled with wisdom and sorrow. The figure spoke, its voice echoing through the chamber. "We are the last of our kind," it said. "We fought, we built, we loved, and we lost. Our time has passed, but our legacy remains. We leave behind our knowledge, our history, and our hope. To those who find this, we offer a choice. Learn from our mistakes, build a better future, or follow in our footsteps. The choice is yours. The hologram faded, leaving Ilara and her team in stunned silence. The legacy of the humans was not one of war or conquest, but of wisdom and understanding. It was a reminder that the past could guide the future, that the mistakes of one civilization could become the lessons of another. Ilara knew what she had to do. She and her team returned to the surface, carrying with them the knowledge they had uncovered. They would share it with the galaxy, not as a weapon, but as a beacon of hope. The Tombworlds were not just graves. They were the foundation of a new beginning. The galaxy was forever changed by Ilara's discovery. The Tombworlds, once feared and shunned, became places of pilgrimage, where the races of the galaxy came to learn from the past and to honor the legacy of the humans. The ancient enmities and rivalries that had once divided the galaxy began to fade, replaced by a new sense of unity and purpose. The humans, long thought to be extinct, had left behind a legacy that would shape the future of the galaxy. Their wisdom, their strength, and their compassion became the guiding principles of a new era, one in which the lessons of the past were never forgotten. And so the Tombworlds remained silent and eternal, guarding the secrets of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. But they were no longer places of fear. They were places of reflection, of learning, and of hope. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some things were best left undisturbed, but the knowledge of the past could light the way to a brighter future. The legacy of the humans lived on, not in their tombs, but in the hearts and minds of those who chose to carry it forward. And in the vastness of space, the presence of the humans remained, a silent guardian of the Tombworlds, watching over the galaxy they had once called home. The end.